Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a topic that's usually out of sight and out of mind, but is actually super important: the official rules that govern the humane slaughter of animals for our food.
It's a question most of us probably don't think about all that often. But that journey from the farm to the facility, well, it's way more detailed and regulated than you might ever imagine.
And for this explainer, we're not just talking in generalities. We're going straight to the source. Administrative Order Number 18 from the Department of Agriculture in the Philippines. This is the actual document that lays out the precise rules for how animals have to be handled.
So let's start with the big question, right? Why even have these rules in the first place? What's the point?
Well, these regulations didn't just appear out of nowhere. They're actually built on the country's Animal Welfare Act of 1998, and they've got a two-part mission. First, it's about using scientific, humane procedures for the animal's sake. But second, and this is key, it's about our food quality. The document itself says that improper handling and stress directly affect the final product. So this is as much about public health as it is about animal welfare.
So what exactly does humane slaughter mean according to these rules? Let's look at the official definition. It has to be rapid, it has to be private, and here's the most important part. It must happen with the least fear, anxiety, pain, and distress to the animal. That single phrase is basically the guiding star for this entire document.
Okay, so let's follow the journey, step by step, right from the moment an animal arrives at the holding pens.
This is how specific the rules get, all to minimize stress. For instance, a single hog has to be given at least zero point 0.6 square meters of space in a holding pen. For a bigger animal, like a culled sow, that jumps up to 1 square meter. It seems like a tiny detail, but it tells you a lot about the level of thought that goes into the animal's environment.
And it goes way beyond just space. The pens themselves have a whole checklist of requirements. Different types of animals got to be kept separate. The floors need to be non-slip with good drainage. There has to be a roof overhead and plenty of ventilation. And maybe most importantly, clean drinking water must be available at all times. If an animal is there for more than 12 hours, it has to be fed. It's all designed to make that waiting period as calm and safe as possible.
All right, so after waiting, the next step is actually moving the animals. And the rules for handling are incredibly clear about what you can and absolutely cannot do.
I think this slide says it all, doesn't it? The contrast is just wow. To guide an animal, you're allowed to use things like soft floppers, rattles, and these things called pigboards, which are basically just shields to block and direct. But now look at what's banned. Sticks, whips, metal pipes, electric prods, basically any sharp or pointed object. The whole idea is to guide the animals, not to force them with pain. And the rules go even deeper than just the tools. It's about the specific actions of the handlers, too. Things like kicking, twisting ears or tails, or poking sensitive areas are all completely forbidden. Handlers are even told not to create unnecessary irritating noises or to use gates to ram animals forward. It's all about respecting the animal and keeping fear to an absolute minimum. We're now at what is, without a doubt, the most critical and technical part of this entire humane process. We're talking about the science of stunning. The definition right here is crucial. Stunning is the act of making an animal insensible to pain before the final step. This is not an optional part of the process. It is a mandatory first step designed to prevent any suffering. And the goal here is incredibly simple, but also incredibly profound: to make sure the animal feels no pain during those final moments. It's absolutely vital that consciousness is not regained between the moment of stunning and the end of the process. And this is where things get down to the second. I mean, literally. This table shows something called the stunning to sticking interval, or SSI. Just look at these times. For pigs, sheep, and goats, the absolute maximum time allowed between stunning and the next step is just 15 seconds. For calves and poultry, it's even less, only 10 seconds. This is a real race against the clock, all to ensure that stun remains 100% effective. Of course, rules are only as good as their enforcement, right? So what happens when somebody breaks these guidelines? The document calls out a few actions that are absolute no-goes. Using knives or blades to mark animals for ID? Nope. A practice called flooding, which is forcibly making an animal drink water? Banned. And the big one: it is absolutely illegal to perform the final step on any animal that hasn't been effectively stunned first. And these aren't just suggestions. They have real legal teeth. As you can see from this direct quote from the law, the penalties for breaking these rules are serious. We're talking significant fines,
and even potential jail time. That shows a real legal commitment to making sure these standards are upheld.
So, after walking through all these very specific rules, from the dimensions of a holding pen right down to the number of seconds on a stopwatch, we're left with one final question for you to think about. Now that you know a little more about the regulations that exist behind the scenes, does it change how you view your food? It's definitely something to chew on.